Your position has been eliminated. Adrian's voice cut across the boardroom like a sealed verdict. Stella Hart didn't move. The quarterly recovery charts were still glowing on the screen behind her, numbers she had rebuilt from a collapsing division no one else believed in. Adrian, newly seated at the head of the table, didn't even look at the data. He slid a folder forward labeled * organizational restructure, as if it erased years of work. Effective immediately, he added. A few executives gasped, someone's pen dropped, no one spoke. Then Stella laughed. Not loudly, not wildly, just a quiet, steady sound that made the room tighten. Adrian's jaw flexed. Clear your office by end of day. She finally looked at him, as if studying a mistake he didn't know he'd made, and didn't argue, didn't plead. Because what she was thinking wasn't in the room yet. It was already in motion. And Adrian had no idea what he had just triggered. Minutes later, the boardroom had emptied, but the silence followed Stella down the glass corridor like it was attached to her. In her office, she didn't pack. She stood still, watching the reflection of employees passing by, each of them suddenly very interested in anything but her. The door clicked shut behind her without warning. Adrian entered without knocking. This is a clean transition, he said, loosening his cuffs like he was settling into a role he had rehearsed. We needed it. You've been controlling operations too tightly. Stella didn't react. Who advised you to use that exact termination clause? A flicker, then Adrian scoffed. Legal counsel, I hired him last week. That landed differently. Stella's eyes shifted slightly, just enough to register the name he mentioned. A firm known for dismantling companies from the inside. She turned to her laptop and began a quiet file transfer, fingers steady. Adrian watched her. Security will escort you out if you're still here after 5. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Don't make this harder than it has to be. The room fell quiet again. Then her screen lit up with a single encrypted line. Clause activated. The encrypted message stayed on Stella's screen longer than it should have. Then it refreshed. A second line appeared beneath it. Standby protocol initiated. Outside her office, the hallway changed tone almost instantly. Footsteps slowed. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Someone pulled a rolling chair back too quickly, scraping sound echoing like a warning. Stella didn't touch the keyboard anymore. She simply watched the system she helped design begin responding without her permission. A soft knock came, controlled, procedural. Not Adrian this time. HR. The door opened and 2 compliance officers stepped in with printed documents already in hand. Stella Hart, one of them said carefully, avoiding her eyes. We've been instructed to begin immediate transition enforcement. Access revocation will begin in 15 minutes. She glanced at the papers. By whose authorization? A pause, then President Hart. A faint exhale escaped her. Not surprise, more like confirmation of something she had already calculated. Before they could continue, her laptop pinged again. File transfer complete. Not just one file, several. Routed directly into the board compliance archive she had quietly built years ago under internal resilience protocols. One of the officers' tablets buzzed violently. Wait, he muttered, reading. This routing signature, this is tied to Mercer and Vale Consulting. That name sharpened the room. Stella finally spoke. He hired them last week. HR exchanged a look. That firm was blacklisted in 2 prior acquisition cases. As if summoned by timing alone, Adrian's voice came through the office speaker system. Calm, controlled, almost satisfied. You should have left when I told you to. Stella turned slightly toward the ceiling speaker. You didn't remove me, she said quietly. You just handed your decision to a system you don't understand. A beat of silence. Then Adrian replied, colder now. Security will escort you out, immediately. The office door lock clicked again, but this time it didn't open for anyone. Instead, the access panel flashed red. Access levels RESTRUCTURNG. And every screen in the building began to flicker at once. The entire company felt the shift before the email even finished loading. Emergency leadership update. Adrian Hart confirmed as president. Immediate organizational restructuring in effect. Phones lit up across departments like synchronized alarms. In accounting, someone whispered, "That didn't go through the board." In engineering, chairs pushed back at the same time. And on the executive floor, Stella walked through it all without stopping. No rush, no reaction, just measured steps past glass walls where people suddenly looked away the moment she turned her head. Behind her, whispers spread faster than the official announcement. That wasn't voted on. She didn't approve it. Is this even legal? A senior board member intercepted her near the elevator bank. Stella, wait, his voice dropped. He bypassed quorum, there was no formal vote, half the board wasn't even notified. She turned slightly. Did anyone challenge it in writing? He hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Upstairs, Adrian appeared on a live internal video call from the conference room. Cameras caught his confident posture, but not the rushed stack of papers being slid off frame. "We are streamlining leadership," he said. "Decisive action is necessary." But someone in legal quietly muted their mic and typed, "These approvals don't match governance requirements." Downstairs, Stella stopped at a workstation and plugged in a single drive. No explanation. No announcement. Just upload. A few seconds later, multiple departments received an automated system ping. Compliance review initiated. Governance override trigger file detected. On every screen across the company, a new line appeared beneath it. Countdown to structural audit, 09:59. And then the timer kept going. No one spoke. Because everyone realized the same thing at once. This wasn't just a firing anymore. It was something the system itself had started questioning. The countdown hit *08:12 when the first systems began to fail. Not crash lock. In the middle of a senior financial briefing, Adrian reached for the company dashboard and froze. "Why is my access restricted?" he snapped. The screen didn't answer him. It simply replaced his credentials with a single line. "Access under governance review." Across the building, similar messages appeared. Department heads lost permissions mid-task. Live reports stopped updating. Internal transfers paused in progress. Panic didn't arrive all at once, it spread in fragments. In legal, someone stood up too quickly. "This is a full compliance lockout." In operations, a supervisor muttered, "We've been overridden." And in the executive suite, Adrian stared at his own screen like it had betrayed him. "That's impossible," he said. "I authorized restructuring, why am I being locked out?" Downstairs, security tried to reach Stella, but her clearance badge still worked. She walked past them into a restricted terminal room and placed her hand on the biometric scanner. "Access granted." A quiet confirmation tone echoed. Inside the system logs, one line expanded in red. Trigger event confirmed. Unilateral executive removal DETCTD. The legal department erupted moments later. An automated alert had escalated to external governance channels. Potential breach of shareholder protection agreement. Adrian's legal consultant finally appeared in person, but too late. Arguing in a hallway no longer mattered. The system had already escalated beyond human approval. Upstairs, Adrian tried to override the lock manually. Denied. Then the conference room doors opened automatically, and two external auditors stepped inside without greeting anyone. Adrian's expression shifted for the first time because he recognized them, and realized this was no longer internal. It was official. The moment the auditors stepped into the room, the atmosphere changed from panic to procedure. One of them placed a sealed dossier on the conference table without sitting down. "Adrian Hart," he said evenly, "this meeting is now a formal governance review under shareholder protection protocol." Adrian blinked. "That's not possible, I authorized." "You authorized a termination without board quorum," the auditor interrupted, flipping the first page open. And under Clause 18B of your company's trust structure, that action triggers immediate executive suspension. Across the glass walls, employees outside began to gather, watching silently as their leadership collapsed into paperwork. Stella entered the room last. Not hurried, not triumphant, just present. Adrian looked at her like he was trying to reconcile two versions of reality. You did this. No, she said quietly, you signed it into motion. The auditor slid a document forward. Proof of governance design, original shareholder trust structure, Stella's name embedded not as an employee, but as co-controlling shareholder with activation authority in cases of unilateral executive misuse. Adrian's face tightened as the realization hit fully. This was never just my decision, he said under his breath. Stella didn't respond immediately. When she did, it wasn't sharp. It was always structured to stop anyone from doing exactly what you just did. The board moved quickly after that. Formal suspension, executive authority revoked pending full investigation, all Adrian's prior approvals frozen for review. His legal consultant was escorted out mid-explanation, still arguing into the air. Within an hour, the company's systems stabilized, but the hierarchy did not return to what it had been. Stella was reinstated officially, but when the board offered her full executive restoration, she didn't accept it the way they expected. Instead, she called a restructuring vote that dissolved the old single presidency model entirely. No one seat should carry unchecked control, she said simply. Adrian was escorted out through the same lobby where he had announced her firing. No confrontation, no final speech, just the sound of doors closing behind him while employees returned to work without looking up. Hours later, the building finally quieted. Stella stood alone in the executive office, the same table still reflecting the city lights outside. The seat across from hers was empty now in a different way than before. She glanced at it once, then turned toward the door. And left it behind. Final closing line. Next time someone takes this seat, they'll know exactly what it costs before they sit down.